So we've been investing in sports media and entertainment for over 15 years. We have a long history and track record of investing in the space. We always had a view that institutional capital would be needed and become more prevalent over time. It was during COVID that we felt there would be a step function change. The asset class has been historically funded by high net worth or ultra high net worth individuals, but the transition was happening pre-COVID. During COVID, the acute need for capital would change things. That was our thesis going back then, and it's really played out favorably for us over the last 5 to 7 years.
We try to look at is the audience size and the trends with respect to the audience, and particularly the amount of consumption, if you will. And you can ascribe a value per consumption metrics to determine in a lot of ways and quantify in a lot of ways what the trends are, the sustainability associated with those trends.
We've always felt that investing in sports media and entertainment required a very flexible mandate. That means we have a full capital structure solution. We felt that made us more relevant to more companies and different opportunities. We also wanted to build diversification within the fund. So that means investing in assets in Europe, the US, and Asia, and investing in a variety of different companies within the ecosystem. That means sports teams and leagues, operating companies, services companies, and a variety of company sizes as well.
And then there's opportunities for us to deploy capital into the other parts of the flywheel that sit around just the center, which is the sports teams. And that could be sports products businesses, it could be sports servicing companies like stadium management businesses.
Our investment strategy has never been about buying just minority equity stakes. This is more of an active approach. We'll often be on boards. We want to be constructive and helpful to companies, not just simply a provider of capital.
I think duration is actually a really important consideration right now, particularly in sports. With longer duration, you have much more visibility to the durability, the trajectory associated with the revenue streams in media rights. Obviously in North America, we've seen the most valuable professional sports leagues, the NBA, the NFL are probably the most two notable examples. Long term, the NBA just renewed its media rights for the next 11 years. I think there's a bit of a trade-off with respect to duration though. The longer you go out, you generally have partners that are willing to invest behind the product. Drive audience, drive engagement, building of that fan base in those respective leagues. Trade-off being is that you don't always realize some of the growth, because you are going longer in terms of duration.
We like that they're in a closed ecosystem, and we like the fact that we can be active and part of the board and make decisions to help them grow. We built our business to show that we had a commitment to the space and that we wanted to be long-term, value-oriented investors.
I think in the entertainment side, talent management and the evolution that we've seen in migrating from pure talent agency, in other words, negotiating contracts on behalf of talent, to something that's more comprehensive in nature, call it turning athletes or turning entertainers into 360-degree brands and being able to bring that capability, putting them on the production line of content development. I think those are areas that we're looking to lean into. And I still think music has growth opportunities associated with it. A lot of it stems from the trends that we're seeing around streaming and proliferation in terms of subscriptions on streaming platforms, particularly in underdeveloped countries across the globe. I'm particularly excited about music royalties and some of the ecosystem around music going forward.
I can honestly say after 20 years of working here that I find my role to continue to evolve and be exciting and interesting. One of the greatest things that's happened over the last 20 years, though, is being able to bring a passion with sports media and entertainment into the office and pair that with a great culture and environment.
Now we're going into a new world with AI. And I think people continue to place more value on social experiences where everybody is watching live content at the same time. And therefore, media rights values are increasing. You're seeing new bidders come in to purchase these media rights. You're seeing streaming companies come in, that's driving values up. The religiosity of fans, the commitment to teams, the willingness on the part of fans to spend money and follow their teams in all different economic environments is what has resulted in this just kind of really steady and uninterrupted growth in sports franchise values. So that's one of the things that we love about the end market.
The human interest angle, right? Away from the pitch, away from the basketball court, away from the football field, but trying to create that human interest where fans can connect in a more humanized way directly either with the athlete or the coach or the team in a more deep fashion, really leaning into that aspect. I generally find that to be the teams that can do that are the ones that are really successful in terms of growing their fan base. I think women's sports are under-monetized. And I think that there is another stage of growth that we are just in the early days of realizing. So I look at women's sports as being an area that could be particularly attractive, media rights in particular. Regionally, I think Asia is an opportunity for us to invest more capital in relative to where we have today. And I think the real estate aspect right now, real estate development around sports stadiums, sports complexes, and arenas, turning them into mixed entertainment, mixed use type of development projects, an area that I think, again, we're early days in